Don in Elizabeth, Colorado. Hey, Don, what's on your mind today? Thanks for listening to SiriusXM.
Hey, you were talking about voter fraud cases. Well, you missed one here in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
In March, a guy who is the host of Wake Up with Steve Curtis on KLZ-AM was charged with voter fraud when he forged his wife's signature on a mail-in ballot. He's charged in Weld County, Colorado.
Is he a conservative talk show host?
Yep, he is. KLZ-AM. And again, his show is Wake Up with Steve Curtis.
So they got a right-wing talk show host in Colorado. Amazing. It's like every time you hear this, I mean, they got one Hispanic person in Mexico. I mean, actually, literally a Mexican citizen in Mexico who but everybody else, it seems, is a white guy who voted for Trump.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very strange. Don, thanks a lot for the call. Richard in Chicago. Hey, Richard, thanks for listening to CPT, WCPT. What's up?
Hey, Tom, thanks. Listen, a couple of quick things. I'll try to rattle this off fast. First of all, I just signed up for your podcast and your newsletter, so
thank you.
I'm super excited about the new learning. I saw Baby Driver as well, and it was definitely worth the fun and the silliness. And
yeah, it's just good dumb fun. You know, if you want to get your head out of politics for 2 hours, it was a great movie.
My wife and I need to do that. But getting to topics, okay. Greg Palast, we had him on the Family Meeting Show, which is here on WCPT in Chicago yesterday, hosted by Eric Grant. And he really broke down Kobach. He broke down Crosscheck on a great level. And I wanted to let the listeners know through you here in Chicago that the Rainbow Push Coalition this week, starting on Wednesday through Saturday, will have a big rally. It's been, I think this is the 46th anniversary. It's a big deal because Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Tom Perez, and Keith Ellison will be here, and Greg Palast will also be here to talk about voter registration, to talk about voter rolls people being knocked off voters' rolls, and to break down Chris Kobach's cross-check. So I just wanted to, I'm letting as many people as I can know through progressive radio that are in the Chicagoland area to try to show up for that event, because it'll be a great opportunity for people to get involved. And when the question comes up about what should be the Democratic singular voice or topic in going forward in 2018 and 2020, I think it could very well be voter suppression. We can talk about Russia all day long, but that's going to take, those wheels are going to move slowly because it implicates so many Republicans on the House and the Senate to move faster, as you said earlier. I think voter registration could be one of those top two items, or voter suppression / voter registration in the whole conversation could be the Democratic conversation, right along with health care.
I don't disagree. I think it needs to be elevated to the very top of the list in terms of intra-Democratic Party conversations. The party needs to be talking about it. The elected officials need to be talking about it. I still remember a meeting that we had, it was at least 10 years ago, here in Washington, D.C., with several elected members of Congress. I'm not going to name names, but they were all names that you would be familiar with. They were some of the, a bunch of good Democrats. And it was me and a bunch of other left-wing talk show hosts. And I don't remember if I brought it up or somebody else did, but the issue that was brought up was, redshift. We're, ever since 2002 with the Help America Vote Act, when Congress gave the states $5.5 billion to buy voting machines from private for-profit Republican-affiliated companies, we have seen, particularly in critical battleground states, the outcome of the elections that came off the electronic voting machines swinging 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points in favor of Republicans from the exit polls, where that was not happening in states that didn't use these machines, or it wasn't happening in states that weren't battleground states. And one of the elected Democrats said words to the effect of, we're not going to take that issue on as a party because it causes people to doubt the sanctity, the safety, the veracity of our election system. And we don't want them to doubt the election system, because if they doubt that, they may not show up to vote. And if they don't show up to vote, we'll lose. And I remember thinking that's like the stupidest position. But that has been the position of the Democratic Party for 15 years now on this issue. And frankly, the one thing that has moved them off that dime is the possibility that Russians might have hacked into the election systems. So, it's praise the Lord, right? Something got through. And
do you think not to interrupt, do you think that Democrats are maybe less afraid now, but certainly have been afraid, Democratic leaders and both House, Senate, and even some of the governors are afraid of taking this issue on because they don't think that the Democratic voters are sophisticated enough to understand it? I mean, I say that cautiously,
right.
But I wonder, and I'll ask the question and shut up and let you answer it, but what do you think about that?
I think that I think it's a combination of a number of factors. Number one, the Democrats, and I say this again from having sat in meetings with elected Democrats and having had off-the-record conversations with elected Democrats over the last 10 years or longer, that this has been, I mean, I started writing about election fraud in 2002. If you go back and read my writings and Common Dreams and whatnot, in a big way I started writing. I mentioned it in my book on equal protection, which I wrote in 2000. But I think, number one, that I know that what they were saying to each other back then was, this is too complex an issue to turn into a bumper sticker, and so it would be a waste of our time, number one. Number two, it will cause voters to think that maybe their vote won't be counted, and therefore why bother show up? So we're not going to be the ones to tell them this. And frankly, what has happened is the possibility that Russia was poking into our election systems on the one hand, and the efforts by Chris Kobach and this administration to compile a national voter registration database so that they can compare state with state and find out where all the people who are double voting exist, which is complete BS. But it's like, to take this to the next step. All of that is happening, and it's waking people up. And God bless Greg Palast. He has been out there beating the drum and promoting the idea that these guys are hell-bent for leather on stealing our elections. And I think, frankly, without voter suppression, which has become an art form, I mean, these guys, without gerrymandering and voter suppression, right now the Republicans would not control the White House, the House, or the Senate. And it's just that simple. And the Senate, I suppose, is negotiable or debatable. But the House, certainly, I mean, more people voted for Democrats in the House for, election after election. Republicans keep holding it. I mean, you got, states like Ohio where it should be 50-50, and it's like, 7-5 or something like that, or 7-4. So these are real problems now, and they're becoming really obvious. So But again, I think if the Democratic Party does not articulate a clear economic message, we want to protect your job, we want to bring back your job, we want you to be paid a decent living, a decent wage wherever you are and whatever you're doing, and we think that you should have health care and your kids should be able to go to college without breaking the bank. Unless the Democrats do that, they're doomed.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
Bill in Olney, Maryland. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind?
Last week, the Washington Post ran an article about the voter suppression, and if you check Saturday's Post, I wrote a letter to the editor, amplifying it, and I think the voter suppression and Chris Kobach is equivalent to putting the fox in the hen house.
Yeah. So it's the equivalent of putting the fox in the hen house, complete with a rotisserie.
Yeah. I live in a very affluent suburb of Washington, D.C. On my cul-de-sac, there are 25 houses.
Oh.
Only 5 of us get the daily newspaper, and only 2 of us get the Sunday New York Times.
Wow.
Which is, the other people are being spoon-fed by commercial media, and it's deplorable.
Yeah, well, the New York Times is commercial media too, but I get what you're saying, and we're looking at the death of newspapers. We're looking at the death of news. I mean, this started in 1987 or 86, whatever the year was. I think it was 87 that Reagan ended the Fairness Doctrine. It arguably started in 82 when Reagan stopped enforcing the Sherman Antitrust Act.
Yeah,
and started allowing and started changing FCC rules to allow larger and larger ownership. And then the other big one was 1996 when the Telecommunications Act was passed, and that just kicked it wide open the door for media ownership, which led directly to the rise of things like Clear Channel and CBS and Cumulus and whatnot on the radio side, and the point now where you may have 250 channels on your cable box, but there's only 15 companies that own all those 250 channels, and the vast majority of them are owned by 5 companies. So that's where we're at right now. It's not a good place.
It's deplorable.
Yeah, it is, to coin a phrase. Bill, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. Well said. Laura in Chicago. Hey, Laura, what's up?
Yeah, hi, Tom. I am so happy for this conversation about election fraud, including and the entire, rigging the elections is, of course, voter suppression, the gerrymandering, public, private financing of our elections, right?
Right, and voter ID laws that disproportionately impact students, people who live in big cities and don't have driver's licenses, and elderly people whose licenses are expired.
Exactly. But it also is the election mechanics and whether or not they're flipping our votes on the election machines, on central tabulators. And I've called before. I really want to walk people through what they can do. You asked me once, what people can do. On our website, we are Clean Count Cook County, and we went in after the Democratic primary in March of 2016, and we went and we had seen that the exit polls varied from the official results in Chicago. And lo and behold, we went in and we found it. We found the cover-up for the fraud. So people can do this county by county.
How much did the results vary, and what did you find?
Yeah, so
we're just about out of time here, Laura. This has to be quick.
And we were never able to count every single vote, so I cannot tell you exactly how many votes were flipped. But what we saw in the audit, we went into the audit, and we saw them really, really finagling the audit on the early voting machines. Mm-hmm. And we're still in court. We're still in court about it. So it was an unlawful audit. They were erasing votes and adding votes on an audit. Huh. So it was a cover-up.
What's your website, Laura?
I'm sorry?
What's your website?
Yeah, it's Clean Count Cook County, and on the top
what?
It's on Facebook. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's on
Clean
Facebook.
Count Cook County on Facebook, and on the top post is a kind of a how-to for people county by county, what they can do. How do they find out what machines they use? How do they find out what the audits are? Where do they go to find out if their audits are adequate? And we recommend that people go in and form a civic organization and start going in and FOIAing and watching these processes so that they can start to see. Once you start to...
I'm with you, Laura. Laura, we're out of time. Thank you.